Chapter 5, July 12, 1776, just before dawn, Norwalk, Connecticut. Nate's eyes snapped open. Hideous pictures had flashed through his mind, a blood-streaked face, claw-like hands grabbing for his throat. He blinked hard to end this nightmare, to shake himself awake. But then Nate understood. He was awake. He was hiding out in the woods about 3 miles away from Storch's house. This is where he had wound up after his breathless run. He had sat here under the tree for hours, in kind of a numb shock, trying to figure out what to do. Somehow he must have fallen asleep. It was now pitch dark. Strange sounds rose up around him. Clicks and buzzes and hoots. The rustling of invisible wings and paws. His jaw throbbed. His neck had felt swollen and bruised, but even worse was the loneliness. He felt like a castaway clinging to the barrel in a stormy ocean. He had made a giant mistake. He had realized fighting back tears. He had to go back to Storch's, to Eliza and Theo. He stood up and started to make his way down to the woods. As Storch would be calmer now, Nate told himself, and whatever Storch might do to him, he'd have to take it. Because what choice did he have? He didn't have a single coin in his pocket or a scrap of food to eat. He was just a boy, alone in the world. But then Nate walked along. He thought about another boy who had once been by himself, the pirate Slash of Shia. Nate slowed down as he remembered stories Papa had told him about when Slash was a kid. He had been born in London, England, and his parents had died before he was 5 years old. He wasn't called Slash yet, but then he was called Jonathan. With his parents gone, he had wound up in filthy orphanages, more like a prison than a home for helpless kids. The food was barely fit for pigs. The beatings were brutal. Finally, young Jonathan couldn't take it. When he was 10 years old, he ran away. He must have been terrified, Nate thought, like Nate was now. But there was no way he'd go back to that wrecked orphanage. Jonathan had got himself on a job in a ship as a cabin boy. He had sailed away and never looked back. Nate pictured a boy on the deck of the sailing of a big sailing ship. The boy's face became clearer until it became Nate's own face. Nate blinked. Something inside of him shimmered. Suddenly, the night didn't seem so dark. If young Slash could go to sea, why couldn't he? Sure, Nate was too young. Papa wouldn't hire cabin boys who were younger than 14. But Nate was bigger and taller than most 11-year-olds, and Papa had taught him to work harder than sailors twice his age. Nate quickened his step as he ran. New York City was about 50 miles south of here. He'd go to Norwalk Harbor. There were always boats heading down to New York City, loaded up with vegetables or oysters or hogs to sell. Nate would hide out on one of those boats if their winds and currents were strong. He would be in New York City by the afternoon. The city had one of the busiest harbors in the colonies, with its merchant ships heading to the Caribbean and Europe and all corners of the world. There had to be at least one captain willing to give Nate a chance. Nate could practically feel Papa's hand on his back, pushing him along. He saw Theo in his mind, and his bright, hopeful eyes, and he remembered the last word Eliza said to him, "Go." He had made to the harbor several hours later. The docks were already crowded with sailors, and fishermen were preparing for the last day. And once Nate looked out, at the end of the dock, a single ship, Valerie. It made weekly runs to New York City, and Nate knew its deck was already loaded up with baskets and crates, heaped with corn and potatoes and cherries. The sails were up, the ship was about to leave. There were only 3 men working on the small ship. They were too busy conversing to notice when he slipped on board. He scurried across the deck and had himself between 2 big baskets of corn. A few minutes later, sailors pushed the boat away from the dock, and with a whoosh of wind, Nate was on his way.